Hi, everybody. My name's Brad Kelly. I'm the regional coordinator for the Society of Biblical Literature's Pacific Coast region. And this is the latest installment of the SBL Pac Coast 7 Good Minutes, Meet Our Scholars. Just a chance for us to introduce some of our established and emerging scholars that we have here on the region. We think we've got some of the best folks out here doing biblical studies in the Pacific Coast region. So today, really excited to have as my guest, Dr. Tammi Schneider from Claremont Graduate University, and there's the shirt, a former president of and former regional coordinator of the SBL Pac Coast region. So Tammi, thanks for doing this. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Outside in the beautiful, before it hits 110 this weekend.
I love it. All right, 7 good minutes. Here we go. Question number 1. I mentioned Claremont Graduate University. How long have you been there, and what all do you do as part of your post there?
Okay, so I've been at CGU for 27 years. Let's just say not quite 3 decades, but getting closer to that than I can believe is the case. I was hired to teach in the Hebrew Bible program, which no longer exists. And I still teach Hebrew Bible, but now I am in what we call the comparative critical scripture track. And it's interesting to see how the field of religion has evolved over a number of years. And so it is not so much that I am teaching radically different classes. It is that I am teaching them within a slightly different context, which is actually really exciting and I am enjoying immensely.
All right. Well, kind of a dovetail with that. Question number 2, in terms of scholarship, what do you work on in your scholarship, just generally speaking?
So in general, I work on Hebrew Bible. I am particularly interested in the way that women are both depicted and the way that scholarship examines the role of women in the text or doesn't examine the role of women in the text, or however that works. And it spills out into how women's voices are heard both in the ancient and the modern world. I also like to play in the dirt, so I excavate in Israel every summer, except for this one. Inshallah, I will be back in the dirt soon. Right now, I've been working for the last 10 years at the site of Akko. I've worked at a number of other sites, and I also am an ancient Near Eastern historian, so I love my Assyrians, and ancient Near Eastern religion is another one of my specializations.
Very good. Yeah, I think many of us lost a trip to Israel this past summer. I was one as well. So specifically, then, is there a specific project that you're working on right now that's got you kind of excited in the midst of all of this? Or
yes, as a matter of fact. So after my book on women in the book of Genesis, Mothers of Promise, Women of Promise, Mothers of Promise. One of the reviews and sort of a few notes on the side were something along the lines of, wouldn't it be interesting to turn your feminist gaze on the men, right? So I had been looking fairly extensively at the various female characters within the biblical text, both as characters and as tropes. And so I have turned my gaze to the men. I'm toying with the title of this book, Minor Men. Sounds like working in a coal mine, which is not really the point. It is M-I-N-O-R men. But I have found that the characters of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the Israelite deity are too big to get into a book with everybody else. And so I am examining all of the male characters who are the subject of at least one verb, and how they function in the text. And one of the things that I like to do is, I'm a data girl, so I like to quantify qualitative data. So, and nobody knows this better than you, Brad, I love counting my verbs. So I look at where the character is the subject of a verb, where they are the object, and how they're described, and then kind of do some kind of a synthesis with their relationships. So right now I'm doing that for the men, and
Sounds great.
ton
Yeah.
of really interesting stuff falls out of that. Even
Yeah.
from the beginning of who is the subject of their own verb.
Mhm.
Um,
Fantastic.
half of Jacob's kids are not.
All right. No,
So,
no spoilers. We want people to get
oh,
the book.
no, it's really great stuff, though. Really exciting. Thank you.
That's awesome. The fourth question is a local question. So you've been out here a while, as you said. What, if anything, do you?
27 years.
Yeah, exactly. What, if anything, do you find exciting or maybe challenging about doing your craft in the particular context of the Pacific Coast region of the U.S., or in your case, Southern California?
So, I grew up in Minnesota and went to graduate school on the East Coast, and the West Coast in California in particular was not sort of a lifted up as a place that real people go and do real hardcore research. I arrived here because it was a job, and I converted to California shortly thereafter. I love Southern California. I think that while we do not let go of rigor, because it's nice outside and life is beautiful and vegetables and fruit are prevalent, and Southern California is the only place outside the Mediterranean that has a Mediterranean landscape and environment. I actually don't have to explain to my students what a whole bunch of stuff going on in the Bible is like. We live it. And so I have found being in California actually exciting and liberating. And I think that some of the shackles that I grew up with, educationally wise, academically, kind of don't function as much. And being just outside of LA with a lot of my students have been trained in and function in the entertainment business. I have just more people that are thinking outside of the box in certain ways and outside of the academic box. That's exciting. And it doesn't mean that they don't have to read the text carefully, but I'm not convinced that the way people were reading the text previously was as careful as it could have been and should have been. It was just following the dictates of a bunch of old dead white men. And so, sorry. So I feel that out here we're a little less constrained by that. And again, in the times in which we live, this notion of on the East Coast, things are more black and white. In California, we live in what I like to call California brown. Everything exists. We've got everything here. And so, things have always been this way. No, they haven't. And it's easier to think that way out here in California, I think, because we never thought that way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So the last question, we'll finish with this one, is I guess a harder one. These are definitely challenging times with the COVID-19 pandemic and racial and social injustice and Black Lives Matter and more. Any thoughts on being a biblical scholar in this time and in this context?
Absolutely. The Hebrew Bible was used to promote slavery and to fight against slavery. How can that be, right? And so I think one of the things at this moment in time is doing, people in the ancient world understood plagues, right? They lived with them all the time. I never have. Now I do, right? I know what it's like to be afraid to go outside of my house. I know what it's like to live under a curfew. I know what it's like to have racial injustice in my face every day. And as a biblical scholar, I am no longer talking about it in a theoretical way, but I see it happening on the news, the news in the evening, in the streets. I march a lot. And so I think it has given us insight into the text that that certainly my generation of scholars had forgotten possibly. And I think the importance of how to read a text. What does a religious text mean? What does it demand of us to do? I think we need to think of that in light of everything that is happening right now. And so actually, I don't think of this as a time to throw out that book. I think it's a time to read it again more carefully and examine how it has been interpreted and what it really says and what we need to do about that. So I
Well,
think it's more relevant than ever.
well said. Well, Tammy, thank you. 7 good minutes with Dr. Tammi Schneider. Hope y'all will tune in and catch the next installment. Take good care, everyone.